So this is my new production studio. From this angle, it's kind of meh. You can see my gear cage to camera left, some workout equipment to camera right. But a few months ago, I wanted to make use of it for a single take performance music video. So I did that by making it look like this. Here's how. As I've previously discussed, I set out a chunk of last year to make music videos for my band Clarkson Go's new album, The Syndicate. Also, this is a shameless plug, so please go listen to it wherever you listen to music. Some of the bigger videos I called in some favors for, and some of the smaller ones I did entirely by myself. Like Hello Aquaman, where I made a sort of stop motion short film in my studio using toys, a computer monitor, and generative AI. Now, we can't blow our wad on bigger budget music videos every time. Some of them have to be that small, which is why I conceptualized a one-shot lyric video for our song Planes. This song is the ballad on the record, and I wanted something simple but still effective and unique. So similar to our Hello Aquaman video, I set out to use a bit of Photoshop's generative AI to help me create something bigger than I could practically shoot on my own. Now, I will interject here with a quick set of thoughts on generative AI without getting overly political or critical. I think generative AI can be an incredible tool to help creatives create on a budget. I do not think it should be a tool used to generate art whole cloth, like making music with the click of a button, or generating full-blown videos for the commercial purpose of saving money, especially when it's something being produced by massive, multi-billion-dollar corporations. I find those kind of uses to be fundamentally immoral. So if you're gonna use AI, use it to help hone your craft. Don't make it your craft exclusively. Anyway, my idea was I wanted us to be playing in this large, empty warehouse that would morph and change into different locations as the song progressed. So my studio became the location. It's bigger than my old office, but it's not exactly a warehouse. Now, with the limitations of Photoshop's generative AI and not shooting us against a green screen or a keyable element, I knew that this white wall behind me would need to remain there. So I set up a practical lamp on the right side of frame and one of my Amaran T4C light tubes set to tungsten to emulate a kicker from that light onto Russ here. Then I set up another one over here with a more daylight balance to give the blank wall some dynamics in its exposure. I also blasted one of my Amaran 300Cs set to daylight with a large light dome on it to expose us, and that was basically it for lighting. I shot it all on my Sony FX3 with my Laowa 15mm f4 macro lens, since it was the widest full-frame lens that I have. The studio was still in flux of transitioning from just a garage to a studio, so I shoved all this other shit out of the way and basically shot us performing the full song several times. Then I did a clean pickup of Johnny sitting on the floor playing the acoustic guitar in front of the drum kit, and that was the entire shoot. It took me about an hour to set up before the guys got here, and shooting took all of half an hour. I picked my favorite take, color graded the footage to a place that I liked, and then brought a still image into Photoshop to begin creating the backgrounds. Now, despite using generative AI, this took way more time, nitpicking, and processing power than I anticipated. As I mentioned, I set it up so the blank wall was always a constant, either as part of the interior of a location I was creating, or crumbling to reveal a background behind us. But I had to do a lot of macro decision-making for each background. Turns out AI isn't always a one-click solution. After creating the initial empty warehouse section, which took about 4 section-by-section prompts to create, I began using that as a base for the rest of the backgrounds. Some of these backgrounds required isolating and focusing on small sections at a time, sometimes going through a dozen or so different variations. So it was far more involved than I thought it would be. For example, this forest shot required 17 different layers, each little section modified one at a time to get it into a place that I liked. After trying full-scale destroyed walls with the forest behind it to no avail, I had to go through each little section of the frame one at a time and try to get it to work that way. This also makes for a progressively slower and processing heavy Photoshop session, with some of these individual still frames occupying up to 800 megabytes, which kind of made Photoshop slow to a crawl sometimes. So I continued on this process to create about 30 backgrounds, some of which I ultimately didn't use because I just didn't like them or felt that they weren't working. I think the final total in the video is 23 different backgrounds. I probably spent on average close to an hour or so on each background till I got them where I wanted. Some were much simpler, like the one of just art and graffiti everywhere. Others, like the aforementioned forest set, were far more complicated and had to be designed in very small sections. I customized a few pieces of the various sets myself with a few little fun Easter eggs, like this bedroom set has a couple of posters for films I've done, which are available to watch on this YouTube channel. And in this one, I put some old footage of us playing on stage when we were like 16 years old on the projectors with our various old band names crossed out above us. I even placed us in the warehouse that the toy band plays in our music video, Hello Aquaman. I did a whole behind the scenes making of video for that you can check out right here. So once I was happy with all of the backgrounds, I brought them into After Effects, masked out the band from each still frame to make way for our actual video performance. But once I cut it together, I felt the hard cuts were a little jarring and weird, so I had to figure out a way to make the transitions better. Ultimately, I pre-comped the cut into a new composition in After Effects and began doing punch-in zooms and post-production camera moves with a bit of motion blur to blend the changes of the locations. Ultimately, I thought that was really effective, and it felt much less staccato and choppy. Once I was happy with the cut and I locked it, I realized the footage and the Photoshop backgrounds felt a little disconnected. Since Photoshop images are still frames and us playing is actual footage, it meant that there's some motion within the frame in the way of grain, which wouldn't be occurring in the background plates. So I brought all the footage without the lyrics into DaVinci Resolve, and I added a node with a 16mm reversal grain effect. This gave the whole image a consistent film grain, making the still images look and feel like they were actually captured by a video camera. I also added a little stylized bloom effect to the whole piece. There wasn't really any justification for that going into it. I was just experimenting and I liked the way it looked. Then I brought all of that final color back into After Effects, synced it up with the song, and output it as a final, which you can now watch on the Clarkson Go YouTube channel. Anyway, that's basically how I made a one-shot, no-budget music video in my studio using mostly post-production trickery and some generative AI. It kind of just demonstrates that with a little time and creativity, you can lean into your lack of resources and still create something kind of cool. Anyway, bye.